up, nerds? Welcome back to Nerd Valley, where we talk about all things Elder Scrolls and Fallout. In today's video, we're going to be explaining everything that we know about the Ebony Warrior, but this time we're getting into the actual one. I say that because I've already made videos talking about both Gaynor and Umbra, so it feels like a natural next step to talk about the perfection of this Elder Scrolls trope. So perfect, in fact, he kind of became the name of it. Now, as for what is known about the character in terms of his backstory, there isn't much, or really anything at all. He's not mentioned in any books, nor do any of the other NPCs talk about him even once you meet him, so all the information we get on him is from him, and it's essentially nothing. To explain, once you hit level 80, you will be approached by a mysterious warrior decked out in all ebony, who will start off by ominously saying, "The time has come," which will leave you with the obvious only dialogue option of asking him, "Who are you and what are you talking about?" So he'll explain that he has traveled all the lands and faced every challenge that he has to face, which is crazy because we have more lore on people that haven't done shit. So what exactly has he been fighting? Regardless of that, he'll tell you that you are basically the only challenging thing left for him to fight, which also crazy because even if you haven't fought Mirak or Harkin yet, he will still say this. Pretty sure Mirak can level with you like all the way, bro. Help me. He's not going to do that though because he very clearly just wants to leave this world, which you'll immediately realize when he starts talking about having an honorable death and going to Sovngarde. That doesn't make a lot of sense and it's probably not going to work out for him, but you'll figure that out later. But after all that, like we're a couple of middle schoolers not trying to get in trouble at recess, he gives you the location where the fight will go down. Pull up to that location though and you will find him waiting there for you, even if you immediately fast traveled, which should serve as an instant sign that he is just that guy. Now getting into the actual fight, holy hell is it difficult. I am not kidding when I say this, it might be the best fight mechanics Bethesda has ever designed. You'll probably start off looking at his gear thinking, ebony armor, ebony weapons, weak shit. I've got enchanted Daedric armor and dragon bone weapons. I can handle it. However, unlike the other characters in this trope, his weapons and armor are not just as simple as being ebony, they are also heavily enchanted. Starting with the long list of his enchanted apparel, he has a cuirass of regeneration, boots of frost suppression, gauntlets of extreme wielding, a helmet of water breathing, a shield of fire suppression, a necklace of shock suppression, and a ring of peerless wielding. All of that obviously makes a pretty stacked set of armor, except the helmet of water breathing. Similar to what I said about Umbra's soul trap, the helmet does all for him in this situation. Probably should have put like a magic regeneration boost on it or something. As for his weapons though, he has a sword of the vampire and a bow of winter, which he will use if you try to flee or keep distance. And it sucks because even if the paralysis effect from his bullseye perk doesn't get you, the bow's enchantment will still slow you down long enough for him to close the distance and switch back to melee. That combat style added with an increased speed and an aggressive use of power attacks and shield bashes already makes him so much more intimidating than most of the other robotic NPC enemies. But moving on, to make his combat feel even harder and more diverse than Umbra's or Gaynor's, he will also use spells. Most commonly, he'll use Frostcloak and Iron Flesh at the start of a fight and then begin spamming Closed Wounds once he starts to drop too low in health. He'll also summon a Storm Matronarch at some point, and if you want to summon anything, know that he also has access to Command Daedra. And similar to the higher level Draugr, he also has access to all three words of the Unrelenting Force and Disarm Shouts, making him the only non-Nord character in the game to use the Thum. Obviously, this is all very impressive, but if you guys have watched my other two videos on the characters within this trope, then you know that ebony gear is not the only trend within it. There is also the unending list of unfair built-in mechanics that they have. So let's get into Ebony Warriors. For starters, let's talk about everything he's just immune to, such as any form of the paralysis effect, including the Ash Shell spell, the Vampire Lord power, Vampiric Grip, the spells Whirlwind Cloak and Dead Thrall, and the shouts Bend Will, Ice Form, Disarm, and Soul Tear. Even crazier, he is immune to the Wabbajack, but not Daedric Banishing on Mehrunes Razor. Though some places are saying his Reflect Blows perk can send it back to you, but I haven't found anything confirming this, so take that with a grain of moon sugar. On top of all of that, not only does his gear give him a 50% resistance to all elementals, but with his shield, he can gain a 100% immunity while blocking. You are able to knock him down with things like shield charge, the werewolf power attacks, or all 3 words of unrelenting force. But if your goal is to send him flying down the mountain, then you should know that he doesn't take very much fall damage, and again, he's pretty fast. Lastly, getting into his perks, he has so many stretched across different skills that I can't list them all, so I'm just going to show them on the screen here, and you guys can pause and read if you want to. One I do want to mention though that isn't shown here is Extra Damage 3, which is an NPC only effect, giving him double damage with everything. So that's awesome. But obviously, all of this makes him an extremely challenging enemy. Possibly the most challenging enemy in the entire game. Sure, there's Karstag and Mirak can level with you pretty far, but they just don't have the specific movement and combat mechanics that give them that Ebony Warrior pizzazz. The funny thing about him though is with his specific build, melee and magic would be very challenging to confront him with, meaning that the best way to go about this fight is a stealth archer. I know it's so common, everyone does a stealth archer in Skyrim, but it works for almost every situation. I mean, the main enemies of the game are flying around. What do you mean I'm not supposed to be using a bow? Seriously though, if you can keep your distance to avoid melee and you're pretty good at dodging arrows, then with good gear you should be set, especially if you can get hidden. But that is it for all of his combat stuff, and sadly also actually it for everything that we know about this character, since even after you beat him and loot his body, we don't get anything that provides any more clarification. Instead, I would say we get left with some more questions. I hinted at these questions earlier when I mentioned how badly he wants to go to Sovngarde, and what I specifically mean is that once you loot him, you'll realize he's a Redguard, not a Nord. And Redguards don't go to Sovngarde, which is even further proven by the fact that if you do this before doing the main quest, you won't find him there. Besides that though, the only other thing that's strange is his height. He is weirdly tall, standing at a scale of 1.21. For reference, the Altamers are the tallest race, and they stand at a height of about 1.08, making him the tallest human NPC in the game, and possibly the tallest one we've ever seen. And lastly, according to the wiki, he also apparently has the same face as Nazir, which I'm not going to comment on that. That feels like a trap. With everything we actually know out of the way though, I want to get into some theories about this character, because there are tons. The first and most popular of these theories is that he is an aspect of Raymond Ebenarm. However, in doing research for this video, I learned that despite the popular beliefs of many fans, there isn't actually anything in the games connecting Ebenarm to the Redguards. In fact, his description in the Ebenarm is very Nordic sounding. He's described as having steely blue eyes and reddish blonde hair. The description almost sounds like they literally tried to describe a biblically accurate Thor, but replaced his magical hammer with a black sword arm. Which sent me down a further rabbit hole to look into this character, so I'm going to go detour into that for a little bit, and we'll get back to the main point eventually. But let's take a look at this. For starters, the only actual mention of Ebenarm is in Daggerfall, where he is just a god of war, not connected to any race. Interestingly enough, during this time, there was no Talos. There was the Nord hero Tiber Septim, who formed the Septim dynasty, but there was no Ascension story yet. That didn't come until Morrowind, which is the same game when Ebenarm stopped being mentioned completely. Which obviously has a whole branch of theories that I didn't even know about, like Tiber Septim having possibly mantled into Ebenarm, or there being a dragon break where the two gods exist at once. Regardless of all of that though, I only really mention it to say that despite a single comment from a single developer, there is no in-game lore connecting Ebenarm to the Redguards. which with that being the main crux of the theory, it no longer makes sense to me. I mean, you could still make the whole ebony armor argument, but then does that not apply to Gaynor or Umbra? That was kind of a dumb question. I guess with this community, it obviously could. Don't even answer that. There are tons of other theories, though, including that he could be the forgotten hero or a representation of the player themselves. One I found that was the most interesting to me was saying that he could be a curse that, like, once you kill him is now passed on to you. Basically, the curse leads you with needing to find something more challenging than the thing you took the curse from. That is a total bastardization of what exactly that person theorized, so I'll link it down in the description below if you guys are interested to go check it out. As for any theories I have, well, personally, I think everyone does know who the Ebony Warrior is, and in fact, he may just be the most famous explorer in all of Tamriel. So who would that be? Well, we don't know, because at some point during his adventures, he found and wore the Gray Cow. Now, I'm not saying he was the Gray Fox, a guild master of the Thieves Guild and all that. There's other ways he could have found it, but he says he did everything, so I wouldn't find it too far-fetched. I don't know, though. I'm kind of just throwing things out there. I'll be honest. Let me know what you guys think of the character and any theories you have on him down in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, later nerds.